Hello everyone, welcome to Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services. This is a video on daily news and editorial analysis, which I'll be covering from the Hindu and Indian Express. The most important news and editorial of the day that is relevant for your examination perspective, both from the prelims and mains examination, will be discussed in this session. Let's get started with news topic list. Today is 12th of May. The first news is NFHS-5 survey that says that half of the household do not seek government healthcare. We'll see some of the detail and data from them. Second, Supreme Court suspends Section 124A till further order. That is a sedition law, a landmark order coming from the Supreme Court. Third, Sri Lanka president to appoint new PM and cabinet. We have seen the crisis that is ongoing in Sri Lanka. Amid that, in light of this only, the present government, which is there, they finally decided to come up with a new government. Fourth, inflation is the biggest challenge. This is what the RBI official has to quote. And the last is an editorial, still a long way for termination as an unconditional right. This will give you an insight about the termination, the medical termination bill, maternity termination bill, which was there. So we'll see the detail about this as well. Apart from this, at the end of this video, there will be MCQ based questions. These questions will be based on current affairs that will help you for the upcoming prelims examination. So without any further delay, let's get started. And before that, if you're new to our channel, do not forget to subscribe Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services on YouTube. If you like this video, if you find this video informative and helpful, do not forget to press a like button. And just to tell you about our newer version of app 2.0, which you can use during your preparation, a lot more study material quizzes are there. वीडियो के डिस्क्रिप्शन में लिंक दिए हुए, आप वहां से डाउनलोड कर सकते हैं आपको. The first news, that is NFHS-5, half of the household do not seek government healthcare. Something astonishing data in terms of the healthcare services. Although government claim कि वो काफ़ी ज़्यादा devoted है healthcare को लेकर के, but जो actual ground reality उसके data कुछ different. Important for General Studies Paper 2, government policies and intervention for the development of various sectors and issues arising from its design and implementations. So according to the latest data, which was there by the National Family Health Survey 5, and this was presented by the Minister of Health himself. So he said that the families in India do not usually seek the healthcare from the government health facilities due to poor quality of healthcare at public hospital. This was earlier the case. This is the fact that everyone is aware of कि जो public hospitals हैं, जो government hospitals हैं, उनमें basic facilities, basic amenities भी नहीं होने की वजह से the people have to shift to the private hospitals. But the astonishing fact is that this was reported in the National Family Health Survey, which will definitely call for both the center and the state government to make it all best possible endeavor, जहाँ पे ये सुनिश्चित हो that yes, the healthcare services that we are providing is par as compared to the private. ठीक है, you cannot match it for the private sectors, but again जो basic above average है वो facilities तो central और state government की responsibility है कि वो अपने citizen को दें. Now finding of the survey, I'll give you some data that would be again important for your mains examination. Make sure if you write in mains, you should incorporate all these points. So the survey report shows that the percentage of household that were not generally used the government health facility during 1921 was 49.5%. You can see half of the number were actually not benefited from the facilities which was given by the central government or the state's government, which is lower than 55.1% recorded in the previous round of the survey, which was like 2015 and 16. तो ये दोनों जो year की comparison है वो आप देख सकते हैं. During 1921, the proportion of such household was highest in Bihar, like 80%, followed by Uttar Pradesh, that is for 75%. I'm not getting into detail of other states. If you read in newspaper, आपको और भी states के data मिलेंगे, but that is not that important. आप ये दो states के data भी वहाँ quote कर सकते हैं examination. The lowest, less than 5%, was recorded in Ladakh, Lakshadweep, Andaman, and Nicobar. Now, reason for not availing the facility, मैंने आपको पहले reason बताई, because of the poor infrastructure facilities. So the report categorically said that the people were not availing the government health facility when they become sick. और सबसे common कारण इसका था because government hospital do not have adequate facilities and they are running with the poor quality of healthcare facilities. That was reported that 48% of the household were not generally using the government facilities, right? So poor infrastructure, poor healthcare amenities, poor manpower, and even the level of treatment that was being provided was not there. Government ने already बहुत सारे ऐसे schemes लाई, जन आयुष्मान योजना है, basically national health mission. All these things are implemented at the center and the state level, but ground reality is something different, right? The second most commonly reported reason is the long waiting time in the government hospital. This is a reality. If you go in any government of hospital which is like a dedicated hospital, अगर किसी organ को लेकर के कोई specialty hospital है, तब वहाँ पे आपको number मिलेगी. At least you get a number for waiting time of 2 to 3 months. That is not feasible if an individual is ill. तो ये सब सारी problems हैं because of the reason the individual is shifting from government to the private hospitals, followed by the fact that there is no government facility nearby and 40% of the household were again facing the serious problems. Now, public health sectors की अगर बात करें, according to the latest data, 46.9 families, जो 46.9% families हैं urban areas में and 51.7% in rural area use the public healthcare sector during 2019 to 21, and this proportion of household availing the private sector hospital was something 51.8% in cities and 46.4% in the village areas. So you can see, according to the requirement, according to the diseases, according to the affordability, people definitely go for the private hospital, because अगर government hospital में इतनी poor facilities मिलेंगी, so no one wanted to lose their life of family or loved one. So the reason being, they are inclined to move towards the private hospitals. Now, staying away, if you see the survey, this is 49.9% household do not have generally use growing government health facilities. और इसमें अगर रीजंस की बात की जाए, नो नियर बाय फैसिलिटीज, जिसमें 40.2% की परसेंटेज है, फैसिलिटी टाइमिंग नॉट कन्वीनियंट, हेल्थ पर्सनल ऑफन एब्सेंट, बेसिकली विथ रिगार्ड्स टू द मैन पावर इन द हॉस्पिटल, वेटिंग टाइम टू लॉन्ग, मैंने आपको बताया द वेटिंग इज ऑलमोस्ट 3 to 4 months फॉर एनी स्पेशलिटी हॉस्पिटल दैट इज अ गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल, and poor quality of care. So these were some of the prominent reason because of the which the people were not inclined to get into the government hospitals, and they rather prefer to go to the private hospital, even depending upon their individual affordability. So if you're stating a reason in mains examination, be clear, categorically you have to state that these were some specific reason that has even called for some of the participation of the citizen, a low participation of the citizen in the government hospitals. The Supreme Court suspend Section 124A, that is the sedition law, till the further orders. I have been continuously following this news. पिछले 2-3 दिनों से मैं आपके साथ डिस्कस कर रहा हूँ इस न्यूज़ को. So we have comprehensively discussed this news. So make sure you get a notes of this, because it can be a very important question for the upcoming mains also and prelims also. We have discussed this substantially. If you are new to our channel, make sure आप पूरे जो पुराने वीडियोस है पिछले 2-3 दिनों के वो देख लीजिए. You will get a comprehensive idea about this news, what is going, what is the further development in terms of the section 124. So this particular news is important for general studies paper 2, structure, organization and function of executive and judicial. So in a landmark decision, the Supreme Court has recently upheld the pending trials. जो भी appeal proceedings with respect to sedition charges क्या रहे हैं, उन सभी को होल्ड करने के लिए कहा गया. सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने डायरेक्टिव्स दी हैं सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट का लैंडमार्क जजमेंट, एंड इवन इट वाज हेडेड बाय द चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया मिस्टर एन.वी. रमन्ना. ही इज अ कमेंडेबल जस्टिस who has given a landmark a roadmap to Indian judiciary, and even he's vocal about his part, and under his leadership in the Supreme Court we can expect some major changes also. So the court has made it clear that it has suspended section 124A till the further orders. The Supreme Court with its all benches would be examining the validity of this law, which is a colonial law established in 1870. The person against whom the fresh cases was filed अंडर सेक्शन 124A, इसमें प्रोविजंस लिखी गई है कि जो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट है अभी कोई फ्रेश केसेस रजिस्टर नहीं करेंगे. नो स्टेट वुड बी लाइबल टू डू सो, एंड सुप्रीम कोर्ट वुड बी कंसिडरिंग द वैलिडिटी ऑफ दिस आईपीसी रूल्स. Now, no fresh FIR. This was a directive that was given by the Supreme Court. Categorically, Supreme Court की जो bench है, it was a 3-bench judge of the Supreme Court. तो इस bench ने कहा, सुप्रीम कोर्ट के चीफ जस्टिस CJ ने कहा that the center will have to refrain, both the center and the state government will have to refrain from registering any fresh FIR under the sedition rules and continuing with the investigation or take the coercive measure evoking 124A of the IPC while law is under consideration. तो जब तक ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट के कंसिडरेशन में है, इसमें कोई भी फ्रेश FIR रजिस्टर्स नहीं होंगे, कोई भी फर्दर डेवलपमेंट जो ऑलरेडी रजिस्टर्ड केस है उनमें भी नहीं होंगे. A person cannot be incarcerated or charged under the currently non-existing penal provision. So Supreme Court ने अपनी मन बनाई है. Supreme Court is of the opinion that yes, this is a colonial law which is not essential at this point of time, and it has been misused by the government also, right? So let's see what is the further development. The Supreme Court completely invoked the sedition of 124A. This would be a landmark for a country like India. प्रोविजंस ऑफ द बेल रखी गई है इसमें, जब सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा है कि अभी इसमें बेल नहीं थी, नॉन एबेल ऑफेंस है. नाउ द बेल इज देयर till further orders. Bail under section in the section of 124, that is sedition, bail become a rule, and a person cannot be incarcerated or charged under currently non-existential or penal provision. The court has made an intent clear that it does not want a single person booked under section 124A to be kept in the prison while reconsidering the law is happening. So this is what a categorical statement clearly stated by the Supreme Court 3-bench judge headed by the Chief Justice of India. Now you can see some prominent cases, although if you're reading newspaper, you're thorough with our videos, you must be aware that some cases were reported. Some of them include Disha Ravi cases from Bengaluru, Kashmiri student, even the Srijal Imam case from JNU, and Kanhaiya Kumar, the most famous cases, which has called for sedition charges. So these are some of the important cases that were reported. जो NCRB ने report किया है that almost 356 cases of sedition under 124 were reported, and 548 people were arrested between 2015 to 2020. But जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट में सबमिशंस दी है कपिल सिब्बल ने, he said that almost 13,000 people have been charged with the sedition charges. So that is another level of debate. I'm not going into that part. We are more concerned about the Supreme Court point of view and what government is deciding upon it, because that is going to be important for your examination. Now, Sri Lanka president to appoint new PM and cabinet. We have seen the ongoing crisis, the economic crisis, which has taken a toll to administrative failure, and even the people of Sri Lanka is witnessing the hardest time at this point of time. So this is important for General Studies paper 2, India and its neighborhood relations. Recently, जो Sri Lanka के present government, like the president and the prime minister, they have said that specifically the president has said that he will be appointing a new prime minister and cabinet this week. So the new government that will have the prime minister would be awarded with an opportunity to provide and produce a new government that will take into country forward. Or country was placed in immediately under the curfew, which was expected to be lifted soon. Once the government is there, अगर government की formations होती है with prime minister and president, the emergency, or you can say the curfew which is ongoing, would be relaxed. Constitutional amendment की बात की गई है. Why this constitutional amendment is important at this point of time for Sri Lanka? Because this will call for more power to the parliament. So the constitutional amendment will prove and move to enact the content that is envisaged in the 19th amendment of the Sri Lankan constitutions, which will call for a more power to the parliament, and the prime minister and the cabinet will command the majority of 225 seats in the parliament. So there it has 225 seats, and it is also expected to bring constitutional reform to grant more power to the parliaments. Crisis जो है श्रीलंका में, that has worsened. We have seen India has been vocal about this, and India although has helped in a longer run, बहुत सारी supports India ने packages भी दी हैं, but in talking about the crisis which is there, Sri Lanka has suffered month of blackouts and dire shortages of food, fuels and medicine. That is the worst economic crisis since the independence of Sri Lanka. श्रीलंका की इंडिपेंडेंस के बाद ये पहले ऐसा समय रहा होगा जहाँ पे इतनी वर्स्ट सिचुएशन हुई है, राइट? Sparking weak overwhelming peace and anti-government demonstration. Now, IMF से लोन मांगा है श्रीलंका ने, and IMF has said that we can only give loan once you ensure that you are coming with a new government, and it would ensuring that the policy which is there is favorable for the people. So Sri Lanka has sought urgent loan from International Monetary Fund following a financial and other support from neighbor like India and China. India has already vocal about the support. तो जिस तरह से जो श्रीलंका की इकोनॉमी है वो कम्प्लीटली डिपेंडेंट है, कम्प्लीटली नहीं बट मोस्टली डिपेंडेंट है वहाँ के टूरिज्म पे भी, राइट. So tourism has a contribution, a substantial contribution, which was definitely affected due to COVID-19 also. But IMS have expressed concern regarding the violence, and it said that it would continue to provide technical talks that begins on Monday, and Sri Lankan government official would have to look into that, and they should make a policy, and they should ensure that yes, the stability is there in the government, and they would call for definitely a stable government which is helping the citizen of their country, and also call for the reduction in the inflation, availability of all the essential food materials. Now, inflation is the biggest challenge now, important for General Studies Paper 3, Indian economy and issues pertaining to mobilization, resource growth and development. तो आरबीआई के ऑफिशियल्स ने कहा है कि अभी के लिए जो सबसे टफ टाइम है दैट इज टू कंट्रोल द इन्फ्लेशंस, एंड इवन द इंडियन पॉलिसी मेकर्स हैव टू लुक इनटू द पार्ट. The NSO is set to release the April retail inflation on 12th of May. That is today they will be releasing. I'll be discussing the detail about this NSO finding tomorrow's video. Now, inflation is measured by the CPI. इंडिया में जो retail inflation है वो CPI के थ्रू मेजर होती है, Consumer Price Index. और मार्च में ये इंडेक्स थी 6.95%, विच इज अपर हायर लिमिट देन व्हाट आरबीआई हैज एंटिसिपेटेड. आरबीआई ने 6 के ऊपर जाने की बात नहीं की है, 4 ± 2 की बात की गई थी. दिस वाज अ कमिटी रिकमेंडेशंस आल्सो, बट दिस हैज टोल्ड टू 6.95%, राइट. थ्रेशोल्ड है 6% के आसपास. नाउ इसी को ध्यान में रखते हुए आरबीआई ने रिसेंटली अभी जो रेपो रेट्स है, जो इंटरेस्ट रेट्स है वो बढ़ाई है बाय 40 बेसिक पॉइंट्स टू सक the excess liquidity from the market, and this is an accommodative policy which will call for the stability in the inflation also. Inflation journey so far की अगर बात करें, nearly 7% inflation for March has come 4 days after the RBI review meeting, and the situation has worsened amid the Indonesia decision to ban edible oil. Indonesia ने डिसाइड किया था कि वो अब edible oil export नहीं करेंगे किसी countries को, and even the escalation in the sunflower oil and coal supply has become the constraint also. Inflation was high in manufacturing goods earlier this week, which has contracted intensive services. Now, foods and crude oil inflation is a problem. We have seen that the ongoing crisis between Russia and Ukraine has also been as a catalyzing factor in this price hike, right? जहाँ पे fuel की price बढ़ी है, that has ultimately led to the price hike of many food items, right? तो ये कोरिलेटेड है दोनों चीज़ें. फ्यूल के प्राइसेस बढ़ने से जो नॉर्मल एसेंशियल कमोडिटीज हैं उनके भी प्राइसेस बढ़ते हैं बिकॉज ऑफ द ट्रांसपोर्टेशन कॉस्ट विच इज इन्वॉल्व इन दैट. Now, looking into the graph, you will get an idea that how 12-month journey were there for India for the inflation. Like for April, it was like 4.23%, and it's gradually reached up to 6.95% in March. So this is the data for 2021, and this is for 2022. Now, RBI has decided to get with the repo rates and the other basic point with 40 basic points. Now, it will ensure कि आने वाले जो quarters हैं उनमें कुछ कमी दिखेगी इस inflation rates पे. Now, currently the inflation force is hitting India and the rest of the world. जहाँ पे जो आने वाले quarters में वो CPI की data है would be again something very relevant. And RBI governor has nudged that the center and state has to cut taxes on petrol, diesel to ease the inflationary pressure. So this would be some of the major important decisions that RBI has recommended to both the center as well as the state governments. Now, still a long way for termination as an unconditional right, something relevant for General Studies Paper 2, that is government policies and intervention for the development of various sectors and issues arising from it, design and implementation. This can again be important for the same paper in issues related to development and management of health. So I'll be simplifying this editorial by 5 important subheads, that is amendment and expansion, ground for the MTP, provisions of medical board, seeking judicial permission, and conclusion. So the entire editorial talks about the legal status of abortion in India. So this is a theme of this editorial that we'll be looking into. Now, under the IPC, it has been said that voluntarily causing of a woman with child to miscarry is an offense attracting jail term, and this jail term can be up to 3 years or fine or both, right? This is what categorically mentioned in the rule book of the IPC. अगर कोई individual women है, if she undergo by miscarry और abortion के लिए जाती हैं, तो अगर वो abortion बिना medically backed है, then it called for a penal provision also, right? Unless it is a good faith with the purpose that was to save to the life of the pregnant woman and a child. So there should be a purpose which should be backed by the medical board. I'll discuss about the medical board in the later part of the video. तो ये मैंडेटरी प्रोविजंस है जो गवर्नमेंट ने रखी है, विदाउट विच इफ यू आर गोइंग फॉर द इन ए miscarriage or abortion, it mount to a legitimate action under the IPC. So the issue of abortion is a news and again internationally, and despite amendment, that is the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, it does not foreground the women's right to decide. So still it is ambiguous whether a woman has an exclusive right in terms of deciding her pregnancy or not. So amendment or expressions की अगर बात करें expansions की, in 1971 after a lot of deliberation of the Medical Termination Pregnancy, that is MTP Act, was enacted, and this law has been amended twice. जो recent amendment हुई है उन्होंने कुछ अलग extensions दी है with regards to the essential requirement, and however the law does not acknowledge the right of a pregnant person to decide the discontinuation of a pregnancy. This is the major problem and the bottlenecks of this law that has been enacted. Now ground for MTP, that is medical termination of pregnancy, क्या क्या ऐसे grounds हैं? First ground I have told you, it should be backed by the medical board, और वो कोई complexes होनी चाहिए, कोई ऐसी genital problems हो, तभी उसी के वजह से ही abortion allow की जा सकती है. The continuation of pregnancy would involve a risk to the life of the pregnant woman, and the reason for this would be substantial risk of a child that was born, that is about to born, or a serious physical or mental abnormality that can exist for that individual. So then only the MTP can be proceeded further. Now the existing of one with the circumstances along with the medical opinion, जहाँ पे medical practitioners और board की recommendations mandatory होंगी before they proceed with the MTP. Now provisions of medical boards are there. So any decision that has to come with regard to the termination of pregnancy, this has to be beyond 24 weeks gestation period, and only the fetal abnormalities has to be taken and considered by the medical board, जो कि examine करेगी कि actual में ज़रूरत है या नहीं. And no termination of pregnancy can be done in absence of the consent of the pregnant woman or a pregnant person, irrespective of her age or mental health. तो यहाँ पे और भी कुछ challenges हैं जो laws को लेकर कि that किस किस conditions पे ये mandatorily allow करने की ज़रूरत है, whether a rape survivor or any other people who is part of that, whether they would be also allowed to undergo with the medical terminations of the pregnancy or not. Now seeking judicial permission in a landmark judgment with regards to the right to privacy, Supreme Court ने categorically ये कहा है that decision making of a pregnant person whether should continue with the pregnancy or not should be an individual right, and this is something which is a right to privacy which call for a right to life. तो ये बहुत important point है, अगर आप लिख लें examination में, make sure you highlight this. And the standards set out in the judgment were also incorporated in the amendment that were drafted. The new law is not synced with the other laws such as the law person with disabilities, mental health, transgenders, or any person that can be benefited from this rules and law. Now, conclusions की अगर बात करें, the amendment did not make any attempt or been iron out the conflicts between the termination of pregnancy. तो कोई solutions नहीं provide करती है. Iron out का मतलब not giving a proper solutions. So where that this should be proceeded, and even protection of child from sexual offences or act or drug from the Cosmetics Act. So this should be taken into consideration because सिर्फ एक law जो कि NPT है उनके जो provisions हैं that is not aligned with the present context and it is a debatable one. While accessing the abortion has been available under the legal regime of the country, and it is long road ahead before the recognizing the right of a person in capacity to become a pregnant to decide unconditionally whether the pregnancy has to be continued or not. So Supreme Court has categorically stated that yes, this is a right of an individual and even it's the right of life to decide upon what they want to do. But government ने backing दी है कि medical board के recommendations mandatory होंगे to further go for if any abortion is required, right? So this was all about on the part of the conclusions. Moving ahead with the MCQ questions of the day, before I proceed, just to tell you the answer of yesterday question. For first question, the correct option is C. For second, also the correct option is C. Today's MCQ, National Science Day. National Science Day is celebrated every year to commemorate the discovery of Newton law. The theme for this was 2021 was Future to STA, that is Science, Technology, Innovation, Impact, Skill and Work. So do check out for the correct answer. Second question of the day, that is National Institution Ranking. Niti Aayog established the National Institutional Ranking Framework in September 2015, and this framework outlined the methodology to rank institutions across the country. So do check it out, which among the following is the correct options. And these type of question would again be related to your current affair question. So this was all about for the daily news and editorial analysis, followed by the MCQ questions. If you have any other concern, you can let me know. I'll be more than happy to assist you. For time being, I'm signing off. Thank you so much for watching this video.